All right, welcome back to Jim Bob's Garden. Today we're going to talk about spinach. Now, I've always loved Popeye. He's one of my favorite guys in the world. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor. Anyway, if you're a Navy chief, you'll understand. At any rate, so this is my spinach. Come on over here and get a good picture of this. So this is my spinach. It did not do so well this year. We tried putting some mulch tea on it and everything. Got a little bit growing, but we're at the first part of May. And if you look down over here, you can see that it just isn't doing well. And it's already doing what is called bolting. By bolting, it's already starting to put out heads. It's growing tall. It's trying to make seed, which I'm probably not going to let it seed because I don't like this particular variety. But I'm not really sure why that happened. This shouldn't happen until it starts getting hotter. And it just never really did grow well here. So we're going to try something different. So what I got, I've talked to you before about companion planting. So what we're going to try and do is I'm going to try and do a companion planting for shade. I'm going to grow beans, which I was planning to grow beans in here anyway. And then right next to it, I'm going to plant some spinach. You can see, let me talk to you about this first. This is a great hillbilly way of making straight lines. Basically, all you do is you take two sticks, tie some string to it, and the cool thing is you can just roll it to make it longer or roll it back up to make it shorter. You can also adjust the level where it's at by how far up the stick you roll it. Real simple thing, works great, just push it in where you want it, bam. Now, if you got a little heavier soil, clay soil or something, you might have to hammer it in. But either way, it's a great way to keep your lines straight. You can leave them there, or you can take them back out, which is probably what I'm going to do. All right. So the idea here is I've got to get my spinach to grow, and heat is one of the things that causes it to bolt. I can't change the temperature, but what I can do is provide as much shade as possible and try and keep it as moist as possible. So first thing I'm going to do is plant the beans. Now, we've had really good success just buying beans from Dollar Tree, or basically anywhere, regular pinto beans, and planting them. Now, if I get pinto beans, that's great, though pinto beans are probably the cheapest beans in the world. I really want the pinto beans, but more what I'm looking for here is for it to help out my soil by growing. These are pinto beans, by the way, but hopefully it'll help the soil by growing up and providing nitrogen for the soil. But the bigger thing is hopefully it'll make a good bush that will shade my spinach from the afternoon sun. All right, airplane's going by. We live right next to the airport. Might bother some, but it doesn't really bother me. All right, so you can see I've already come through and kind of cleaned everything up, gotten rid of all the weeds, which I've kept, by the way, made them into mulch. And then here what I've done is already started digging my little furrows. Now beans, you want to plant them, I can't remember, I want to say it's about an inch deep or so. So as long as we get close, we should be fine. And then basically you just run your hand along. If you got good soil, or you can use, loose soil, or you can use a rake, or you can use a shovel, whatever works for you. You just make a line, and that's the nice thing about the string. You just run your hand along the string, and that gives you that line that you want. All right. And the bean plants, I want a lot of them. So I want to plant them every couple inches or so. And just go through, set the beans in there. Now, like I said, hopefully we'll get some beans. But if we don't get beans, as long as I get some plants, I'll be happy. Primarily to shade, and then also, as you may or may not know, any legumes, which are beans, peas, and so on, anything that forms a pod like that, provides nitrogen for your soil. Now, a lot of times when you go back to Midwest, what farmers will do is they'll plant corn or wheat or what have you, and then in the off season, they'll plant soybeans, primarily for the crop, but secondarily to improve the soil. All right, so there we go. So we got beans. Now we just cover it back up with some dirt. Real simple process. Now, these will bush out pretty big, so I may end up thinning these out later on. We'll see. But a lot depends on how big the bushes get. But like I said, primarily my purpose here isn't so much to grow beans as it is to provide shade for my spinach. Now, this dirt is getting really hot right now, so we're going to have to cool it down. Now, I've tried a different variety of spinach this time. This one is something called Olympia Hybrid. We had spinach last year that grew really well and did a good job, and we saved a bunch of seed, but I planted a lot of that seed, and either it was too early or just didn't take well, but I never got a single sprout from any of those seeds, which is kind of frustrating. All right, so I'm going to save some of them, and I got some plans for them too. Now, this particular seed is something from So Easy, which I bought at Lowe's. I do not get paid by anybody right now, so I'm not getting paid by Lowe's, not getting paid by So Easy. But I will say that we tried some of these with the asparagus, and nearly every one of them came up, which was rather impressive. So I'm going to try them here with the spinach. Now, the spinach doesn't need to be nearly as deep. What's to say, about ½ inch. So that's why my furrow isn't as deep. And again, keep in mind, that's an approximation. All right. And then, what's it say, usually a couple inches apart. Plant spacing, it says 6 inches. But we're going to plant them a little closer, because that way we can, if we need to pull some out, we can. We can thin it down a little bit. But my daughter, our photographer, does not like to eat any greens but spinach. So we got to get some spinach growing, or she's just not going to eat her vegetables. And we don't want that, do we, Bree? Yeah, well. I can't get broccoli to grow yet. Not sure why. We planted it twice, and it has not done well. Not really sure what the deal is with that. But I did find out, I think is it cabbage? I think it's cabbage and broccoli don't do well together. And I did plant the cabbage very near the broccoli. So that may have affected it. Believe it or not, what you plant next to each other can really have an effect on what will grow and what won't. Now, the nice thing about spinach, and carrots too for that matter, is that spinach and carrots will basically grow with anything. Well, at least that's what my chart says. I got a really cool chart that I downloaded off of Pinterest. It's a companion planting chart, and basically says which plants will work well with others. Get a chance to look that up. I forget who made it, but I use it quite a bit. So far, it seems to be working. All right, now I'm going to save these because I got some other places I'm going to try and plant these as well. All right, then we're going to cover that up. Like I said, about ½ inch is what you're looking for of dirt. And, you know, if you're doing this on a larger scale, you can also do this with a rake or a hoe. One more use for a good hoe. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen my hoe video, highly recommend it. One of my favorites so far. I thought it was rather entertaining, but then I'm fairly easily entertained, so. Maybe that's why. But I enjoyed the heck out of making that one. And that's really what I'm trying to do here. Gives me something to do with my life, and something that's fun, and gives me some food too, which is kind of cool. All right, now what I'm going to do next, I'm going to go turn on the water real quick, and we're going to water it in. All right, now, believe it or not, in Florida, there's a certain skill to watering. Most places you can just start pouring water. The problem is here in Florida, what will happen is because it's all sand, it won't soak in right away. All right. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to run this over here for a while. The hose has been out for a good long time, and I really want to cool the soil right at this moment and not heat it. So we'll water my flowers. They need it anyway. If you look over here, this is the beginnings of a butterfly garden. She didn't really cover too much because it's not really food. But we've got a whole bunch of plants in here that are for butterflies, including a bunch of milkweed. Milkweed that's the only thing that monarch butterflies will lay their eggs on. It's also the preferred food because when the caterpillar eats the milkweed, it's actually a poisonous plant, and it makes the caterpillar poisonous for most animals. It may not kill them, but it'll definitely make them sick. And so, as a result, most bug-eating animals won't eat sick or kill them, which is a pretty unique way for an insect basically to protect itself. So that's why you got to have milkweed. If you want monarchs, milkweed's the stuff. We had some last year, and man, I can't tell you how many caterpillars and chrysalises we had. And it was really neat watching them not only lay their eggs and such, but also hatch out. It was really a cool experience. Highly recommend it. And all it costs you is a little bit of milkweed, which is very easy to propagate as well. All right, so when you're watering sandy soil like this, what you want to do is hit it lightly to start with, and then kind of let it soak in. You don't want to hit it all in one spot, because what will happen, here, I'll show you right there. Here, come get a close-up. So what happens is it wets just the top layer and doesn't really soak in. So you get these air bubbles. Now you can saturate it, but it really will take a while for that to happen. That's why kind of like a sprinkler action seems to work best. Do a little bit, let it soak, just like a sprinkler would. Give it a minute to soak in, and do it again. The other thing with watering in Florida, and a lot of people don't get this, if you water too much, how do I want to say this? Basically, because of the sand will draw the moisture down. All right, so if you water really heavily, it doesn't really help like it does in some other areas, because what can happen is it'll just basically suck the moisture right down into the lower sandy areas, and the moisture doesn't stay at the top. So even though in a lot of places they tell you not to water lightly, repeatedly, in Florida sometimes it's better that way because the moisture otherwise will just basically drain away. It doesn't get maintained like soils with clay in it. Now, not all Florida soil is sandy, but all of the soil in this area that I'm aware of anyway is very sandy soil. These are my peas back here, by the way, which I finally got to grow. Third batch I planted, and I don't know what happened or why, but they did not want to come up for nothing. So, trying to baby these suckers along. See if we can't get some peas growing for once. Tried it last year, the same thing happened. They got maybe this tall and then all died. So, once again, I'm hoping that the shade provided by these beans will help me out with that. Now, the last step we're going to do here, and I don't know if this is what you're supposed to do or not. I'm sure the old guys could tell me, but I'm not an old guy yet, so I'm still learning, is I'm going to put a mixture of compost and basically yard waste mulch over the top of this. Now, what I don't want is to have so much mulch that the plants can come back up. And I'll show you that here in a second. But if you look now, it's not doing that beating thing, and it's actually soaking right in, which is what you're looking for. All right, because if you keep hitting it real hard, what'll end up happening, it'll just bead. The top part will get wet, but the bottom part won't get anything in it. None of the moisture will get down to where you want it at. So water it, let it soak for a little bit, and then come back and hit it again. It's the best thing with sandy soil. I remember at my other house, we're out by the beach. Like about a mile from the beach. And I accidentally forgot and left the garden hose run. And I came back like half an hour later, and where normally in clay soil, you'd find a big old puddle. I had a puddle maybe 2 foot wide. After letting the hose run for a good half hour, it all just soaks right up, goes straight down to the bottom. All that sand, plenty of room for moisture. All right. Now last year, I did fertilize these with a little bit of cow manure compost. And that's why it's as nice as it is. But I'm trying to avoid buying compost, and I'm going to try and use what I got. Hang on one second. Let me pull this in where you're at. Scoot back just a little bit. Oh, and by the way, one of the reasons I don't much care for growing broccoli is I don't much care for eating broccoli. So, which I know is probably not a good thing. Broccoli's good for you, but not my favorite. Yeah, it is gross when it's cooked. All right. Oh, that is comment from beyond. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do here, you notice I kept my strings there. I'm going to thin the compost / mulch out so that basically where I've planted, there'll be either a real fine layer or no compost or mulch at all. All right, so right now we're just going to kind of cover it. Now most of this is either leaves or grass clippings, which I know can cause weeds, but that's all right. I'm retired, so I can deal with the weeds. That means I got time to pull them out. A lot of people don't like using yard clippings. One of the other reasons that people don't like to use it is because of the chemicals that are put on yards. But I haven't put any chemicals on my yard since last year. And even then, it was just one application. So hopefully all that's burned out. And it seems to have worked so far. And I'm going to continue to not use chemicals wherever possible. So this compost / mulch serves two purposes. One, once again, it's going to help to keep things cool, which is what I'm concerned about with the spinach in particular. And two, once again, like I said before, nature loves rotting things. That's what makes basically things grow, stuff that is rotted. So my goal is to try and use basically rotted vegetation to improve my soil. And you can see this has sat in there for some time. It's starting to break down pretty good. I probably could leave it a little longer, but I just don't want to go out and buy compost. So we're going to use what we got. And I will continue to build my pile as the years go by. Just like building the soil, it's all kind of part of the process. So what I'm doing now, I'm just thinning it out, like I said, so that we essentially get a real thin layer, if any at all, over the top of the string. Because I really don't want a real heavy layer of compost, and then the seedlings are basically struggling to get through. The beans will make it. beans are pretty tough, man. I mean, I've been amazed how well the beans have done, even in poor soil conditions. I planted them all around my trees and such. Like I said, the big reason for that is beans are a great nitrogen fixer. They'll put nitrogen in your soil. Though I've heard that it only happens after the plant dies, and I've heard others say that it happens as the plant grows. Doesn't really matter. Having beans there does help. And like I said, back home in Kansas, all the farmers would plant a winter crop of beans to help improve the soil in their fields usually. Sure. How did we get so loose? Yep, that's pretty good. Here again. Now I don't know. I'm hoping this isn't too close. As far as the plants being planted together, the beans and the spinach. We're going to find out. A little bit of experimentation never hurt nobody. And basically, all I'm spending here was like $1.50, I think, for the seeds. How much were they? I'm sorry, $2.50, and $1 for the beans, which I used a handful of, and we will definitely cook the rest, because Mama makes some of the best beans you've ever eaten, and tacos and such. For those of you who are single, if you like Mexican food, marry a Mexican. Though she's never been to Mexico, don't get me wrong. She's California mostly. Though in our time, we have lived all over the place. I got one daughter born in California, one born here, and one born in Hawaii. And we lived in Hawaii, Spain, Tennessee, California, and two different places in California. Florida. Where else did we live? That's it. Now these are my coffee filters. They are taking a bit longer to break down, so they're going to go back in the compost bin. But the other thing I'm kind of experimenting with, seeing how well I can get paper to break down. So as you can see, I got a nice layer, maybe an inch thick, pretty much covering everything. Once again, it'll help fertilize, but the primary purpose right now is to hold in moisture and to keep the soil cool. One of the things that happens with spinach is that it'll bolt and basically start putting out seed, and the leaves don't taste near as well that way. And once it does that, it usually does that as a result to heat and dryness. So if you keep it moist, keep it shaded, I'm thinking I should be able to get it to grow even when it's getting hot. And it's starting to get hot here. We're in, like I said, May 7th, and the temperatures are averaging somewhere around 80, 85, which is kind of cool because the pool's fixing to get ready to get jumped into. But that's what I got for today, for the moment at least. This is how I planted spinach. I've got a lot of other videos out there. Everything from how to use a hoe to how to make a gill for your apple trees, which we'll talk more about later. Please come visit my site. Go check out some of the other videos, see what you think. Leave me comments if you got ideas, or you think what I'm doing is wrong, or you know what I'm doing is wrong. Let me know. A lot of this is experimentation, a little bit of reading. But at any rate, check out the rest of my videos. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and grow something. Does a lot of things for you. It helps out the environment, makes really good food that tastes a lot better, and keeps you busy. And kids love messing around in the garden. Something about kids digging in the dirt. They just love to do it. All right, that's all I got for today, and thank you once again for stopping by Jim Bob's Garden.